Cross-processing is a Photoshop version of a tried and true manual technique from slide processing. What cross-processing involves in its simplest form in the old manual method was you took your Ektachrome slides and you process them using chemicals that weren't designed for that type of film. The result would be that you get all these weird color shifts, and it looks a lot like this. As you can see, it gets yellowy, greeny, bluey effects all over the place. So one more time, that's what a normal picture looks like, and that's what a cross-processed image looks like. Now, for reasons best known to those who run the fashion magazines, this particular look became very, very popular during the 90s and still gets a good run these days, so it's nice to know how to do it. It's also the building block for a few other techniques which are worth knowing, including how to fake up a thing called Lomo photography, which you'll also find here at the Tutorial Bucket site. The effect is a building block, so how do we do this? We'll turn this off first, and we will start by adding in a curves layer. Everything we're about to do can pretty much be done with a single curves adjustment layer. So I go to my layers palette, add in a new adjustment layer for curves. Okay, I'll bring over my curves box here so we can see what we're doing. Now the bit that's a bit tricky for this, if you've never used curves before, I'd really recommend you go and do a couple of curves tutorials first, because we're going to need to adjust individual color channels. It's not difficult, but if you don't know why you're doing it, it can be a bit confusing. However, if you really want to know, bear with me and we'll do the best we can. Go to the drop down which says RGB and first start with the red channel. Must choose red channel. Now we're going to make 3 adjustments on the red channel. We're first going to take the lightest point at the top. I'm going to drag it over to about there, and that will narrow the red range, and it has the effect of it lifts the red tones, flattens it a little bit, and ups the highlights. Go to the darkest point in the red channel. This is the bit that's interesting. Move up a bit to about there, click one time and hold your mouse down, and then just drag that new point just over to about here. You can eyeball this to see if you like the effect. What this does is it reduces the amount of red in the darkest areas, so it results in these blue-green tinges because you're pulling the red out of the shadows. So that gives you that nice bluey-green look. Now to balance it all up, go back up to about here again to the highlights for the reds, click and hold, drag it across just a little bit, and that'll just lift those red highlights just a little bit more, counteracts some of those mid-tone shadows just a little bit, so you get that characteristic blown out look. Now if you don't like this blown out look, which is normal for cross-processed images, I'll show you a quick trick for getting back the actual luminosity without losing the color effect at the end of this basic technique. Now we've done the red channel. We go to the blue channel next. That's right, not the green channel. Green we do last. The blue channel, we're just going to do a little adjustment to fiddle the shadows on this. Go to the darkest point, drag it up to about there, then go to the lightest point and drag it down to about there. All we're doing is we're just narrowing the dynamic range that we've got here for blue, and it just balances up the highlights that we had out in the red. Okay, now the final part is the green. Green is going to fine-tune the highlighting in the image, particularly on the skin tones. Down the bottom, we're going to just drag over a point just to about here, not very much, just to about there. And up the top, drag one over to about here. So it's a very, very gentle S-curve, amazingly gentle. And that should do the trick. I'd recommend you eyeball this. Don't look at the settings that I've applied and slavishly follow them, because you can adjust this according to taste. I'll just drag this out of the way. Okay, so there is before and there is after. Now I promise that if you don't like this blown out look, you can adjust this, and you need to do this by changing the blending mode for the curves layer. Now I'll just open up the blending mode list, and the blending mode I want, you can't see it because it's right down the bottom, so I'll just have to move my camera here. There we go. We'll try again. Blending mode that we're looking for is color. We're going to keep the color that we get from this curves layer, but not take any of the luminosity changes. So there you go. You now get the color effect, but you don't get the luminosity shifts. As I say, if you like the luminosity shifts, just change it back to normal and you get the effect. Whatever floats your boat, make the choice that you think is good for your image. Final thing that you can do is, if you really want to go that little bit extra, is you can add in a solid color adjustment layer and give it a slight yellowish tinge. The yellowish tinge is also characteristic of a lot of cross-processed imaging. Very simple, just a new adjustment layer, solid color. What you're looking for is going to be, and I'll just drag the lightness up on that one. What you're looking for is you're looking for a yellow with a fairly greenish sort of tinge to it, so somewhere around here is pretty good. Sort of a tennis ball yellow will do you nicely. Say OK, and then pull the opacity on that layer down to 10%, somewhere around there. That'll also give it a slightly faded look, which is also characteristic of the cross-process imager process. So there is before, there is after. Yep, hope you enjoyed that one, folks. And remember, take a look at the Lomo tutorial and you can use this effect to create an even more interesting image based on this cross-processed technique.